Welcome to Denglisch Docs. It's important to remember that people with disabilities are individuals, so we refrain from group references, such as the disabled or the blind, and use person-first language. This means that when we talk about people with disabilities, we place the person first and the disability second. For example, you could say the person who uses a walker or the man with Down syndrome. Now, when talking about blindness, we use the term visually impaired, which describes many degrees of vision loss, including someone who is partially sighted, legally blind, and blind. So you could say David is visually impaired, or Becky has a low vision, so she doesn't drive at night. When speaking about people with physical disabilities, we can say Aaron has a physical disability, or he has a physical impairment. We also use the term mobility impairments to describe numerous disabling conditions which affect movement. For example, Aaron uses a mobility chair because he has some mobility impairments ever since the car accident. When discussing people with disabilities related to the brain's thinking process, such as storing or processing information, we can say Doug has a cognitive impairment. Now, if his impairment is related to learning, we can be a little bit more specific and say Doug has a learning disability or a cognitive disability. In America, we no longer use the phrases mental retardation or mentally retarded. Instead, we say Dorian has an intellectual disability. If someone has a disability related to speech, we say that they have a speech or language impairment. Now, this terminology applies to all communication disorders, such as stuttering, impaired articulation, language impairments, or voice impairments. We've stopped using the mute with regard to people who cannot express themselves verbally, because calling someone mute silences them and places a label on them that lessens the value or devalues their autonomy. When speaking about disabilities related to hearing, we can use the term hearing impairment. For instance, Mike has a hearing impairment. Another appropriate term is hard of hearing, when describing people with any degree of hearing loss, from mild to profound, including those who are deaf. Note that when we use the word deaf, we usually refer to hearing loss that is so severe that it is very little or no functioning hearing. For example, if someone asked, "Is Bob deaf?" you would say, "No, he's hard of hearing." When discussing mental illness, we don't use terms like crazy, insane, or psycho. We might say, Abby was recently diagnosed with schizophrenia, Daryl is taking medication for bipolar disorder, or Mike has a long history of depression. Now, it's important not to use phrases like mentally disturbed, which reinforce negative stigmas, stereotypes, and discrimination. The terms person of short stature, little person, and dwarf are commonly used to refer to people with a medical condition called dwarfism. You should never say a midget because it's extremely offensive. Many people with dwarfism prefer the term little person. So you could say, my colleague Amy is a little person. Now, when it comes to autism, it's a bit more complicated depending on how people view autism. Autistic people, their family members, and professionals who feel that autism is just one trait of many in an individual prefer person-first language, and they say a person with autism. Others who feel that autism is their or their child's identity believe that it is wrong to describe someone who's autistic as a person with autism, a person who has autism, or even worse, a person who suffers from autism. Instead, they choose to say an autistic person, which implies that autism is an inherent part of an individual's identity. So if we say James is autistic, we recognize that autism is his neurology. It's how his brain is wired and an integral part of how he experiences the world. Now, after all is said and done, just keep in mind that even though every individual is unique, there is one thing we all have in common. We all deserve to be treated with respect. Thank you for your time. See you next time.
We out like that.